Hello, I'm Robin Vincent and welcome to Molten Modular. Now, this video you're going to see is the building of this rig, the choices that I made and the reasoning behind it and the thought process and the general chit chat around populating my Arturia pair of RackBrutes with modules and what I was doing with that. This was originally supposed to be in the video where I talked about the modding of these cases and how I'm putting this together with the idea for live performance. But I felt that it was a sort of video that could stand on its own, just the thought process of populating a case. And so this is the finished product, but now what you're going to watch is how I put all of this together. Great, well that was exciting. I don't know about you, but this is awesome. I'm having a lovely time. So yeah, lots of potential here. Now, I've got 4 rows of 84 HP. Previously, I've got 2 rows of 104, so that's 208. Whereas this is 312, 316. Is that what I've got? I don't know. Anyway, I feel like I've got a lot more to play with, but it's not the same as this 4. So I've still got to make my choices. I've still got to come up with the right sort of rig. I mean, I've been fascinated watching Modular Melody's journey with this very thing. He seemed to be going with one case for quite a while, and then suddenly it was 2, and then suddenly it was 2 and a bit. And when I saw him play recently, it was 2.5 cases, 2.5 cases worth. He was extraordinary, by the way. I hope to ever do anything that extraordinary. That would be extraordinary in itself. But this, I hope, is going to be the rig that might make that happen. Now, there are pros and cons with this as it is, and we'll probably speak more about this once I've put modules in it. The main one simply being that the angle of this is going to hide you from the crowd, and I have to be very mindful about how I place it in order to be able to connect with people who are watching, as well as being able to connect with the gear. Which also talks about what bits am I going to be doing what with? Am I going to be compartmentalizing? Should I put all the sequencing stuff down here, all the control stuff down here, and then put the oscillators and the filters and the effects and stuff up here? What's going to be better? Is it better for me to be doing filtering down here, or is it better for me to reach out for filtering? Because that's what I'm going to be using the most of. Is it better to have it clearer at the bottom where I have some controls, where I have sequences? First and foremost, what sequencer am I going to be using? Am I going to be using the black sequencer? Am I going to be using the M185? Or both? Do I have room for both? I don't think I do. Should I perhaps use the Korg desktop sequencer? But then I don't want to have to take another device. I want it to be all in here. And so I'm inclined to take the black sequencer because that gives me the most musical potential. Of course, I'll take my little Wavephonics 8-step sequencer, without a doubt, because that's a great thing to use on the run, as it were. Then what do I do for drums? See, I have an idea about that, which isn't actually quite here yet. So maybe I can't finish this as well as I think perhaps I could. But I think what's important for the purposes of this video, because this is inevitably going to be an ongoing, evolving situation, that this is going to change. Once I've put modules in here, I'll start to work with it and I'll start to practice it. And then things will get taken out, other things be put in depending on what it is that I want to use. And also because I'm forever taking bits out to do videos with and other bits, and there's a lot of throughput of modules in my little shed. So this is going to be a forever changing thing. But if I can get a lot of it right that I'm using all the time, that could be awesome. And then it's just practice and trying to get to know the stuff and writing actual music. Can you imagine writing music on it? Because that is also part and parcel. I'm trying to bring stuff together to make it easier to write with, because sometimes having too much stuff gets a bit ridiculous and you're not really sure what to do next, whereas focusing down on a couple of sounds, a couple of oscillators, a couple of bigger things. So I'm thinking, let's stop thinking about it and let's try to do some of this. I think would perhaps be the best course of action. And like I say, I'm kind of hesitant because I don't want to get it wrong, but of course I'm going to get it wrong, and of course I'm going to change it, and that's okay. Let's just see if I can put together a system to see whether the thing will power on and not catch fire, and see how that looks. I think that would be good. Let's do that. So let me put in the obvious ones first, and that's going to be most of my orange case over here. So I feel inclined to go with oscillators on the left, which then goes towards the filter, which then goes towards the VCA. Now, as these are fixed nuts, it makes rearranging it quite traumatic. Whereas with my sliding nuts, I quite like sliding nuts, you can just shift stuff about, change things around a lot easier. So I've got to be thinking about signal flow, got to be thinking about accessibility. So do I just do this to this? And then do I do the next row here? Or do I do a section and then a section? I mean, it's interesting. There's a lot of different ways of looking at this. I think I'm just going to make it up as I go, which is always the best way. See, I could then put a VCA in, so I've got a little voice here, then I could have another little voice here, because I know I'm going to probably have 4 things going on. So oscillator, filter, oscillator, filter, oscillator effect, sequencing, utilities. But I really don't know. It's going to have to work in depending on what on earth is going on. I mean, what else would I put in there? Because this is a natural flow, but it's not necessarily where I want them to actually be to access them, because I might want to have this all the way over here and have 2 voices which feed into this so that I can do them together rather than in the middle. Is that better? Is that worse? Is it better to have it in the middle? Is it better to have it to the side? Oh, these are the questions, you see. These are the questions. All right, I'm going to put this over this side. Sod it. I'm going to leave some space. So I'm going to put in my Honor oscillator. Now this is a lovely thing, absolutely lovely oscillator. I want another one when I can get around to it and I can find the spare cash, because I think 2 of those together would sound brilliant. It's funny how I spent a lot of time with the Make Noise STO, 2 of them in the end I got, to do, duophonic or just to double up on the oscillator, and that was awesome for a good while, and then it for some reason it was no longer awesome. And this little thing came along, and it's like, no, this is exactly what I want to sound like. This thing here, this is the one. What on earth was I doing with that STO all the time? 2 of them. It just, I mean, it's got some good variable shapes, but it doesn't have the actual sound that I think I found most pleasing. So I've now got oscillator, filter, oscillator. My other filter is this one, which is the grit. See, that feels very strong. Now I'm going to take a moment just to turn the system on, because it is largely untested. Well, I get lights. Good. So next up is going to be the surface. Now, I can already see a problem with my method so far, which is that I can't see. I can't see the ports. Can't see the power ports for this one. I am unplugged, yeah. Let's see if I can hit that in there. So that's a pain. Right, so these edge connectors then, they're a right pain in the arse. I've not come across these before. That's got it. Next up I've got the Polycinematic. Now are both of these going to be going to that VCA, or they kind of have their own VCAs built in? So that's less of a thing. So I wonder what I'm going to do with these two. Maybe what they need is a mixer, so I can blend them together before going to something else. Maybe this is sort of baseline lead line. This is frills and pads. Maybe this needs to be effects. And what is that going to entail? Am I going to put magneto in? Am I going to keep it simpler? Am I going to go with beads? Oh heck, these are the questions. These are the questions. But maybe for mixing I just need to go with veils. And I think ultimately you've got to start, I mean, you know, it perhaps would have been better to sit down with a piece of paper or a modular grid and have some kind of plan and reason it out. But that's not really how I see things. I see things much more and oh, give that a go. Oh, let's change that, give that a go. So I think rather than trying to overthink it at this point, I just want to put in the modules that I enjoy using and then worry about it. So put in the stuff that gives me pleasure, and then I can hone it after that. Because there will undoubtedly be a whole load of utilities which I won't think about until I need them. There's also an entire drum section I've got to think about that, as I say, I have an idea for that I'm going to have to use. I'm going to have to leave a space. Which should be along soon. I mean, for instance, I could put an entire dreadbox bit in. That would be nice. Or I could put an entire lifeforms thing in. Can't quite put the two together. But I don't know how to use this well enough to do something live with it. It's too much. This fella, that might well be interesting. Or is it too fiddly for live performance? Good questions, good questions. You're sitting there going, what is this guy? He doesn't have a clue. What is he doing? I know, I realise I don't have a clue. That's kind of the fun with it though, isn't it? So let's put beads in, because I'm going to feel like feel like I know what I'm doing if I put beads in, which of course I don't, but it will make other people think that I know what I'm doing. So I'm going for kind of a row of effects along here. That's where I'm thinking at the moment. I wonder if I could use some switches, so I could switch patches between different things rather than having to physically do that. See, that's something to look into, isn't it? That's something to look into. So, magneto, is it going there? Am I going to put it in there? Because you find yourself in a situation where something like the black stereo delay is far more instant, far more going to work, going to do something. That is absolutely it. I know exactly what that's going to do. Whereas with a magneto, it's going to offer a lot more scope in weirdness and strangeness and texture, in all those sorts of chasing different sounds around the place. Do I want that in my live performance? I don't know. I don't know. So sod it, let's put magneto in. I mean, one thing I haven't done much of is the sort of the sampling and looping. I did that live with some vocals once and it was just totally brilliant. Maybe I can do something along those lines. See, that's nice. With this little space, which I think I know what I want to put in there. I won't do that up yet because I might not be able to get my fingers in. So, Brilio, Kyobra, I'm never quite sure which is the company and which is the module, but this is a rather nice distortion module that is good any day of the week. Now I've got 3 left, I think. Now one thing I haven't talked about is modulation. Definitely going to need a fair bit of that. Envelopes and LFOs. Now I could use the Maestro, which I have over here, which is a very performance orientated, both potentially envelope and LFO, but I wonder whether I can get more from something as simple as this and the Batumi, whether that offers more in a smaller space. Don't know, put a maybe on the Maestro. Put a maybe. I think I'm going to go for a utility. I'm going to stick a mult in there. Is that the best place for it? Would it be better placed somewhere else? Somewhere in the middle? Does it matter? Don't know. Let's go with that there for now. The other thing I can little fit in there is a little trim. See, that's very pleasing when you fill up a row. Although, no, I've overfilled it. Oh no, I can't fit it all in. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I'm left with 1. I thought I had 2 left, but I don't. I'm left with 1 because that's 3 HP. Do I have anything 3 HP? I kind of do, but I'm going to go with this for the minute. So do I have my Batumi more in the middle? Let's do that. For some reason I'm liking having my veils on the far right. I tend to have audio outputs over on the right, mixing over on the right, and I know my output module is going to be over here, and actually no, probably here, so that gets best out of the way. So what am I saying? I don't know, just still talking, aren't I? Put my div kit in there. So into this space, do I need to be thinking about utilities? Because these are going to go into the filter, into the VCA. These potentially through effects, but then could also go into here, or not. I haven't decided yet. My mute on will definitely come into play, but that's going to be down here. See, that'll fit quite nicely. I just could stick a delay up there. Something alternative to the magneto. I mean, the black stereo delay feels like a large module for just a delay. I mean, I could get like their Pico Dsp and use that, and it'd probably be a similar thing. And so maybe that's too much real estate. Yeah, in fact, because the one thing I don't have going on is envelopes. So I can cure that. So there I've got the black dual ASR envelope. And I tend to companion that with the ADAC quad gate trigger to gate thingy. What this means is you stick a gate in the top and it kicks out a trigger. Or is it the other way around? Something like that. And it just enables me to trigger these from a gate output from a sequencer, turn that into a very sharp trigger to trigger the envelopes rather than gate them, so that I can have both of them actually doing something slightly different. It makes sense. Honestly, it makes sense. It does. Makes sense in there somewhere. I'm going to add in this little passive Vactrol called Pinhole. Is that going to fit? From Tenderfoot. It's a bit of a squish. Okay, I think it would be a good idea to turn the thing on again. It's looking good. Right, so far so good. Let's populate the rest of these knurlies. Otherwise I'll just forget about it, and then I'll try to pick the thing up and the whole lot will just fall out on the floor. You'll notice that I haven't done anything as far as kind of colour or matching aesthetic goes. No. It's a lot more slapdash than that. Thank the Lord for knurlies. Everything in. Right, now, so let's think about sequencing. So let's take the whopping great big black sequencer, put that in like we've got a purpose. Because if I'm performing live, if I'm expecting to have at least 4 channels of sound and some polyphonic business going on, then I'm going to need a sequencer which is going to be capable of coping with all of that. And the black sequencer certainly can. I just haven't used it in a while. I've got a little bit of relearning to do. Oh, spiders. So this is probably going to go down here. I'm not going to plug it in just yet. I'm going to want my wavephonic sequencer over here. Like so. The other thing I think I might put in is the Variegate 4 Plus. Now, while it can be an immensely frustrating piece of module, it is very versatile. If nothing else, it can be a clock, and I don't actually have a clock anywhere else. I guess the black sequencer potentially could be the clock. So maybe this isn't going to be required. But what I do like about it is that you can, similar to the 8-step sequencer, you can just pull out a quick sequence without too much worry. You know, without trying to be too accurate about it, you can just make that happen. The thing I'm going to need with the step sequencer though is a quantizer. So let me put this in here. Now the microscale is positively brilliant, although I always get the feeling that I've only scratched the surface and there's probably a lot more I could be doing with it that I'm not currently doing with it because I'm an idiot. So there must be sort of things where I can save configurations, or that I can shift it, transpose, you know, clever things that I could be doing with it which I'm currently not. So I'd like to spend a little bit more time thinking about that. What happens is I just tend to turn it on, put in a couple of notes and I'm off. I'm not worried about it too much. I do also have, I think, another quantizer on its way to me. Not that I'm down on quantizers. I mean, I also have this fabulous thing from Tenderfoot, which is a quad quantizer, which might actually be the answer. But again, I need to sit down and work out how it works so I can use it properly. I have a couple of things like that that are just, it's through not having the time just at the minute to look at something that probably has all the functionality that I need. And I'm not taking advantage of it just because I have not had the time. But we're going to start off this system with the things that I'm most familiar with and see how we go. See, with all of this here, I've now got plenty of sequencing power. And so for this side, what I probably need to worry about is percussion. So I've got a bit with that and with this, and mixing. Those are going to be the key elements at this point. Going to drop in clock divider, always vital, I find. even this Dopefor one seems to do the job. I'm sure there's more elegant things out there, and I don't actually know what half the stuff does, but I do know that when I put a clock in the top, I get different clocks come out of this other bit. Oh wow, that's really good. You really know what you're doing. Yeah, I really know what I'm doing. The other utility that's vital is this mult. This is called Dupe from Tenderfoot again, and this passes everything through, so I can have 1 in, 9 out, which is flipping awesome. So yeah, that's definitely one to have. Shall I turn it on at this stage to see whether this is still going to put itself together? Lights, everything has lights. Yeah, still looking good. Still looking good. Now, other things I know I'm going to need is the Rosie output. Still not found anything better than this. I mean, ultimately, at some point I'm going to need to go stereo, and that's the one thing this isn't. I mean, it's a stereo output, but you've just got two mono ins, as far as I can work out. So there's no panning of any sort going on. Although it does have a stereo return on the effects loop, but it's such a useful, handy, does absolutely what it needs. There's enough room to get to everything. There's my level, there's the amount of effects there's going to be. I can either go that way or that way, A or B. It's just brilliant. Just brilliant. I just kind of need a stereo version, I think, at some point. Maybe not yet. Maybe not on a live rig. Maybe I'm being silly. But wasn't I thinking of having that up here? I think I was, so that this cable, this output cable, is not in my way. See? That's thinking, that is. That's thinking. That's good. In which case I'm going to move this mute on along a bit. Now next to that I've got the Pico Dsp, which is just a glorious little reverb. Absolutely does the job as far as I'm concerned. And this stays permanently wired in to the Rosie. Now I am aware that there's an upgrade or a mod you can do for the Pico Dsp in order to get it to run the Valhalla reverb, which would be nice, which I will do if I can get around to it. But for the moment, that's fine. These horrible little cables, but they serve the purpose. Right, so the mute on is going to go alongside that, because I'm imagining that this is the last stop. Now the mute on's not the easiest thing to access, I have to say. But, yeah, so that might be better off down here. Yeah, that might be better off down there, where it doesn't have anything to the side of it, so I can easily access this other than a single thing going out of here. See, that's smart. That is smart. Let's do that. So I need to leave room for something I've got going on here, which I don't have at the moment, but I need to add drums and probably a mixer for them. So let me use my nice abstract data mixer. Then I've got my Pico drums. I have to sneak through here and use one of these power connectors. Now I have thought about using my Queen of Pentacles, actually, which could be that whole section. And this is one of the modules that's frustrated me a bit, because I just haven't gelled with it. I haven't kind of wrapped my head around it yet. But if I put that in there, I wouldn't really need to worry about anything else, because I've got my kick drum, snare drum, claps, and then the rest are samples, and I could put anything I like in there. Again, if I gave it enough of my time. So maybe I should be putting this in here. Maybe that's the smarter move. I don't know. I mean, what are my other choices? That's the other thing. I mean, for drums, I've got the Pico drums, which is fine. So that's 2 sound sources. But then I'd have to be using either the hats, which I don't particularly like, the 2 HP hat, or the Basimilus, which I struggle with. All right. For the moment, I'm going to put both in. So I'm just going to sneak drums around the corner. Just to here. See if I can master the Queen of Pentacles. If I can really get some samples in there that I want to use, and if I can get to understand how, I don't know, how to make it pump in ways that I haven't been able to, then that could be an awesome thing. So I have a plan for what's going in here, which isn't this, the ratchet. But I don't want to leave anything open at the moment because I'm quite scared of these open ports. Because when I use flying bus cables and things, the chances of actually dropping something into them is quite slim. But these, as they sit there staring at you while it's on, I'm going to drop something in there and blow myself up. So I'm going to stick this in as a temporary measure for the moment, because it is at least will let me program the drums easily, which is something I'm going to be doing with something else. What else would be a good thing to just slap in there? And lastly, I'll put in the More Fader from Bafako, because this is a fascinating, interesting thing, mixing possibilities and potential and all that kind of stuff. And this, hopefully, will almost fill that space. Almost. Needs me with 2 HP for something. Put my trim back in there. Just as a filler. Beautiful. So there you go. I hope that was interesting in one way or another. There's absolutely no doubt that this is going to be a continuing, developing, evolving situation as I discover what works well in a situation, what doesn't work, utilities that I need in here, things which go in, things which come out. There's a lot of other stuff. This will be a continually moving object, I think. But I hope it's interesting to put it together so far. And since doing the putting together video in that first patch, I've had to repatch it using these different cables, which if you're interested in that, go and watch the other video, which tells you all about the putting together of the system as a whole, including the difficulty I had closing the system up because of the height of the cables. But I've now got new cables, and I've now got a new patch, and I will play you out. So in the meantime, go make some tunes.